the work that you do, just knowing that your interests, like you've looked at bereavement, children, families, anxiety, depression, in terms for your clinical interests. We live in a time of heightened stress, heightened anxiety, whether it's the bombardment of social media. Uh, you turn on the news and just see every conflict that's happening at every corner of the globe. Uh, what sort of solace have you been able to guide, like clinically, people towards as they sort of navigate all this stuff? And I'm not sure how much you are in clinic as much now, being a dean. Um, but I guess, yeah, I'm curious to know what
Well,
how you've been able to kind of lead people along through that.
yeah, I think that the last thing we want people to lose is hope. And there is an importance of hope. Now, people are going to find their hope in different ways. So as we talk about that, you know, if we're rooted in Catholic Christian belief, if we're rooted in Christian belief, you know, we find our hope in Jesus, and we find ourselves moving in that direction. Um, the and recognizing it doesn't mean that things are always going to be easy, that things are always going to be the way, but we know that He is walking that journey with us. But when I've done therapy, I don't always have people that have that belief. There's that, but you, I would always try to help them uncover what are the possibilities
Mm.
in your life? What are the kinds of things you aspire to? Uh, but before they can get there, they would often have to go through the pain of healing their woundedness. Because in that, we're all wounded to a certain degree, but when you have people who are really struggling, those wounds can be deep. And sometimes in that woundedness, the last thing they want you to hand them is some message of hope in Jesus, because they're sort of looking at it like, well, if I believed in him, he was everything that people say he is, then I wouldn't be in this situation or the circumstance that I'm in. So there are times you have to take people through that journey of human healing, uh, helping with that woundedness. And then gradually they become more open and receptive to what God can offer them. Now, there's people in doing therapy, you may never get them there and they don't have those beliefs. But I think Pope Francis talks a lot about, going into the trenches and, and all this. And a very dear priest friend of mine at one time um, made a comment to me. He said, God comes in mess. God always comes into the messiness. And he said, and you can be an instrument of meeting people in that messiness. And maybe you're going to lead them in a direction that is going to point them towards Jesus. And you have that. And I think I always kept that very close. I don't necessarily have to just work with someone. And as I say this, it's always more, I guess, in some ways, a more profound journey when you can integrate all the pieces, with the person. But it was also recognizing that it's what you're called to do in that moment. It is, and it may not be the complete picture, but you need to be doing the most for that person. I also knew that the Holy Spirit was guiding the show. I had I had training, I had knowledge, I had expertise, but there were times, in fact, I've shared this with students sometimes, and particularly when I was a novice therapist, and I'd sometimes be sitting with someone and I'd go, why do I think that's the question I should ask? And I'd say, I don't remember seeing that in a textbook anywhere. And of course, when you're new, you get concerned because you don't want to do anything wrong, so you're always going to the textbook. And I would risk trying it, and I'd go, "Oh my, look what this opened." And it made me very, very receptive to the fact that it didn't matter who I was working with, what that individual's beliefs were. The fact remained that the Holy Spirit was guiding the show. He was allowing me to put all my knowledge together. It was like moving me to investigate this, which makes sense in your studies
Mm,
of the human person, but at the same time, recognizing that it may not quite seem the right direction to you if you're just looking at this at a human lens,
mm.
but it's going to allow for more healing to take place. And so, having those sorts of experiences, it just made me much more receptive to, what the Holy Spirit was doing, what He was providing in those moments. So, as you're going through, I think that it's that recognition that when we're living our faith journey, it is encompassed in everything that we do, even when we're not necessarily talking about God. Okay, we're not talking about the religious belief. It is shown in how we are walking the journey, how we are relating to people. And it's recognizing, I need to take that moment, I need to understand. So as you're going through, when psychology as a discipline has in the last couple decades has become a little more receptive to that recognition of a person's religious belief is important. We can't totally deny it because there was at one point it was like, you're doing psychology, don't worry about that. We can't delve into that. And there are still psychologists that function that way. But the idea was if we're investigating variants of people's cultures, we have to look at everything that's encompassed. And so it was under the guise of culture that was like, okay, we have to look at this. But we also were told, but you cannot tell someone what to believe. You can't, say to them, if you would take on this belief, this is what's going to make. So we can't impose those beliefs on them. But the other side of it is that in the journey, you find that sometimes people just become a little more open. They become a little bit more receptive to the fact there is more to life's experience. And so they start exploring their values, they start exploring their beliefs. And sometimes that will bring them closer to their relationship with God or that awareness of it. So it's it's a magnificent journey, but it takes time, and there has to be a patience with it.